Welcome to today's Explainer. We're about to uncover the hidden architecture behind our daily communication. We're going to explore those invisible structures that completely dictate how we read, write, and interact with the world around us. Now, you might think of rhetoric as something reserved for ancient philosophers or politicians in dusty rooms, but as we're about to see, it is literally the secret language of the internet, academia, and, well, pretty much everything in between. Okay, let's dive right into this. Think about the students you see constantly on their phones. Whether they realize it or not, every single time they scroll, like, retweet, or post, they're already active practitioners of rhetoric. And honestly, you are too. Every single text message you fire off to a friend, every comment you leave, every meme you share in a group chat, it's all a calculated rhetorical act. You are constantly making split-second choices about how to best get your point across to your audience. So, here is our roadmap for today. It's a pretty exciting one. First, the digital rhetorical situation. 2, social media and authenticity. 3, words, images, and memes. 4, the critical response toolkit. And finally, number 5, evaluating intention versus execution. Let's kick things off with section 1, the digital rhetorical situation. Because here's the truth. All communication, from a goofy 15-second TikTok to a heavy 15-page academic term paper, has an underlying structure. Let's break this definition down simply. The rhetorical situation is just the conditions of the communication and the agents, meaning the people involved. It's the who, what, where, when, and why of absolutely any message you send or receive. See, rhetoric isn't just about grand, persuasive speeches. It's the fundamental, everyday technique behind how you connect with another human being. And this brilliantly illustrates how it all connects. Think of your communication like a giant mixing board with 5 core conditions. First up, you have your genre. That's your medium. Are you texting or are you writing an essay? Then you have your purpose. Are you trying to inform, entertain, or persuade? Then there's your stance, which is your specific viewpoint on the topic. And finally, the whole shebang happens within a specific context or setting and a shared culture. Moving right along to section 2, social media and authenticity. Let's look at a real-world case study to see how these rhetorical conditions play out on a massive scale. Take singer and actor Selena Gomez. She has hundreds of millions of followers, yet she describes her social media strategy as highly intentional. She actually uses her specific context, which includes her very public struggles with lupus and bipolar disorder, to craft a stance of deliberate vulnerability. She doesn't just post pointless pictures, right? She ties her communication to a solid purpose, like advocating for mental health. By really understanding her audience's culture, she uses this authentic rhetorical stance to generate an incredibly deep connection. All right, section 3, words, images, and memes. So there's actually a fundamental difference in how our brains process different types of information. Words are sequential. If you're reading English, you're passively reading from left to right, building up the meaning step by step. But images? Images are presented simultaneously. They hit us all at once. This means navigating visual information requires a completely different kind of active, critical decoding, and you have to do it at a mere glance. Let's try it. Take a look at this classic optical illusion. What do you see right off the bat? Do you see a young woman looking away into the distance, or do you see an older woman in profile? It's fascinating, right? This perfectly proves that our own personal experiences and our cultural backgrounds drastically alter how we interpret the exact same visual information. If we aren't aware of our own cultural lens, we might completely miss an alternative perspective that is quite literally right in front of our eyes. Now, what happens when you smash a simultaneous image together with sequential text? Well, you get a meme. The term meme was actually coined way back in the 1970s by evolutionary biologist Richard Dawkins to describe a unit of cultural transmission. In our digital rhetorical situation, the image provides this immediate emotional baseline, and the text slaps on the specific stance. It's a wildly efficient way to transmit a complex cultural idea in an instant. It just spreads like wildfire. Which brings us to section 4, the critical response toolkit. Now that we actually know what the rhetorical situation is, let's build a toolkit for actively analyzing it. When you encounter any text, you can progress through these 4 steps. First, summary, condensing the main points. Second, paraphrase, putting it into your own words to make sure you really get it. Third, analysis, breaking down exactly how the author constructed the text. And finally, evaluation, judging whether the text actually pulled off its purpose effectively. We're moving from just understanding something to really critically evaluating it. Let's test this toolkit out right now on a serious piece of history. This is a snippet of President Harry S. Truman announcing the atomic bombing of Hiroshima. Take a second to absorb that quote. If we apply our new critical response toolkit, how do we look past just the basic historical facts of this massive event? Now, what's really interesting here is how analyzing Truman's specific word choices completely reveals his underlying rhetorical stance and purpose. Our analysis shows he quickly establishes the setting, but notice how his language zeroes in entirely on the utility of the target and the sheer, raw destruction of the bomb. He deliberately omits any mention of human casualties. The tone is almost prideful, carefully crafted to emphasize the supreme power of the U.S. military arsenal to both allies and enemies. That is the real power of textual analysis. And the coolest part is, we can apply this exact same academic framework to our messy daily digital lives. Take a look at how a heated social media thread about voter suppression breaks down. We can step back and impartially analyze this. One user deploys historical summaries as their strategy. Another demands hard factual evidence, while others use strong emotional stances to express their frustration. Regardless of where they fall politically, every single user here is actively navigating their rhetorical situation, deploying specific strategies to try and win over the audience. And finally, Section 5, Evaluating Intention versus Execution. It's time to turn that critical lens right back onto your own digital footprint. This is an absolutely vital concept. Your intention is what you mean in your head. Your execution is how you actually express it out loud or on the screen to others. That gap between those two concepts, that is exactly where miscommunication happens. I mean, have you ever sent a text message or a tweet that was taken completely the wrong way? Yeah, we all have. That is a failure of execution matching intention. This is exactly why academic tools like writing portfolios and grading rubrics exist in the first place. They aren't just arbitrary torture devices from teachers to assign grades. They are essentially rhetorical checklists. A rubric is just a guide designed to help you perfectly align your intention with your execution. It forces you to step back and ask, did my intended purpose, genre, and stance actually make it onto the page clearly for my audience to understand? So the absolutely crucial point to take away from all this is every single time you communicate, you are leaving a trail behind. Does your execution truly match your intention? When future employers, friends, or academics look back at your social media posts or your essays, what will that permanent digital footprint actually say about your credibility, your cultural awareness, and your critical thinking? It's your rhetorical situation out there. How are you going to use it?